gives you complete instructions for sitting practice of meditation. The style would be shamatha vipassana, or traditional classic Buddhist empty sitting, paying attention to the breath. It's the form that I practice and have for a long time. It's sort of a standard, basic oldie but goldie. So do the meditation rock. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, boom, boom, boom. If you want to learn how to meditate, I'll tell you now, 'cause it's never too late. I'll tell you how, 'cause I can't wait. It's just that great that it's never too late. If you are an old fraud like me, or a lama who lives in eternity, the first thing you do when you meditate is keep your spine, your backbone straight. Sit yourself down on a pillow on the ground, or sit in a chair. If the ground isn't there, if the ground isn't there, the ground isn't there, sit where you are. If the ground isn't there, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity. Da-dum, da-dum, dum, 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 dum. I fought the Dharma, and the Dharma won. Follow your breath out, open your eyes, sit there steady and sit there wise. Follow your breath right out of your nose, follow it out as far as it goes. Follow your breath, but don't hang on to the thought of your death in old Saigon. Follow your breath when thought forms rise. Whatever you think, it's a big surprise. It's a big surprise, it's a big surprise. Whatever you think, it's a big surprise. Do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity. Generosity, generosity, generosity. Yeah, generosity, 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 generosity. Yeah, generosity. Boom, 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 boom. All you got to do is to imitate. You're sitting meditating and you're never too late. When thoughts catch up but your breath goes on, forget what you thought about Uncle Don. Laurel Hardy, Uncle Don. Charlie Chaplin, Uncle Don. You don't have to drop your nuclear bomb. If you see a vision come, say hello, goodbye. Play it dumb with an empty eye. If you want a Holocaust, recall your mind. It just went past with the western wind. Do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation, do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity. Generosity, generosity, generosity. Yeah, generosity. If you see apocalypse in a long red car or a flying saucer, sit where you are. If you feel a little bliss, don't worry about that. Give your wife a kiss when your tire goes flat. When your tire goes flat, when your tire goes flat. Keep your heart on under your hat. If you can't think straight and you don't know who to call, it's never too late to do nothing at all. Do nothing at all. Nothing at all, no. It's never too late to do nothing at all. Do the meditation. Follow your breath so your body and your mind get together for a rest. Get together for a rest. Get together for a rest. Relax your mind. Get together for a rest. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Learn a little patience and generosity. If you sit for an hour or a minute every day, you can tell the superpower to sit the same way. Tell the superpower to watch and to wait and to stop and meditate, 'cause it's never too late. No, it's never too late. Never too late to tell the superpower to stop and meditate. No, never too late. It's never too late to tell President Bush to stop and meditate. No, it's never too late. It's never too late. Tell Gorbachev to stop and meditate. No, it's never too late. Never too late to tell old Danny Quayle to stop and meditate. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Do the meditation. Get yourself together, lots of energy and generosity. 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 Yeah, generosity. 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 Yeah, generosity. And maybe another Blake, little Blake, tiny Blake, little country western Blake. A flower, my pretty rose tree. A flower was offered to me, such a flower as May never bore. But I said, I've a pretty rose tree, and I passed the sweet flower o'er. Then I went to my pretty rose tree to test her by day and by night. But my rose turned away with jealousy, and her thorns were my only delight. And her thorns were my only delight. A flower was offered to me, such a flower as May never bore. But I said, I've a pretty rose tree, and I passed the sweet flower o'er. Then I went to my pretty rose tree to tend her by day and by night. But my rose turned away with jealousy, and her thorns were my only delight. And her thorns were my only delight. So, some short poems. Irritable vegetable. Don't send me letters, don't send me poems. Too busy to write poetry, too sick. Skies covered with gray clouds, perfect for photography. I have brain metal fatigue, knee-jerk aesthetic tears. So you got a junk habit. So you got a recommendation to Purgatory University. So you're working with the Fort Collins nuclear freeze campaign. So you got high blood pressure, your big toe hurts, someday you'll die. So you sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So you work on the top floor of the Empire State Building. You're a jerk. You're a hypocrite who eats hot dogs. Some one-line, single, simple declarative sentences. Put on my shirt and took it off in the sun, walking the path to lunch. Put on my shirt, took it off in the sun, walking the path to lunch. A dandelion seed floats above the marsh grass with the mosquitoes. A dandelion seed floats above the marsh grass with the mosquitoes. At 4 a.m., the two middle-aged men sleeping together hold hands. At 4 a.m., the two middle-aged men sleeping together hold hands. In the half-light of dawn, a few birds warble under the Pleiades. In the half-light of dawn, a few birds warble under the Pleiades. 4 skinheads stand in the streetlight rain talking under an umbrella. 4 skinheads stand in the streetlight rain talking under an umbrella. Caught shoplifting, ran out of the department store at sunrise and woke up. Caught shoplifting, ran out of the department store at sunrise and woke up. These two. That tree said, I don't like that white car under me, it smells gasoline. That other tree next to it said, you're always complaining, you're a neurotic, you can see by the way you're bent over. Why I meditate? I sit because the Dadaists screamed on Mirror Street. I sit because the Surrealists ate angry pillows. I sit because the Imagists, William Carlos Williams and Charles Resnikoff and Carl Rakosi, breathed calmly at Rutherford and Manhattan and Minneapolis. I sit because 2,400 years. I sit in America because Buddha saw a corpse in Lumbini. I sit because the yippies whooped up Chicago's tear gas skies. Once, I sit because I sit because I was unable to trace the unborn back to its womb. I sit because it's easy. I sit because I get angry if I don't. I sit because they told me to. I sit because I read about it in the funny papers. I sit because I had a vision, also dropped LSD a couple times. I sit because I don't know what else to do, like my friend Peter Orlovsky. I sit because after Lunacharsky got fired and Stalin gave Zhdanov a special tennis court, I became a rootless cosmopolitan Jew. I sit inside the shell of the old me. I sit for personal world revolution. Arguments. I'm sick of arguments. You threw the butter in the pan. I did not. You let it melt on the stove. You invaded Turkey and killed all the Armenians. I did not. You invaded China and got them addicted to opium in the 19th century. That's what you did. You built a bigger H-bomb than I did. You used poison gas in Indochina. Your Agent Orange defoliated a quarter of the Indo-Chinese landmass. It isn't fair. You sprayed Parquat. You smoked pot. You're under arrest. I declare war. Why don't we turn off all the loudspeakers? Prophecy. As I'm no longer young in life, and there seem to me not so many pleasures to look forward to, how fortunate to be free to write of cars and wars, truths of eras, throw away old useless ties and pants that don't fit. Moral majority. Something evil about you, Mr. Viguerie, Mr. Falwell, Robertson, Swaggart. No, not evil, but ignorance of the delights of the boy. The 1920s have passed. Corsets, chastity belts, whips, the stake, lesbian cities aflame in your fiery eyes. Some old demon, the Satan in possession of your body, that 1,000 years old, 2,000, that burnt the parchments of black Sappho. I've seen God as much as any man on earth, and he doesn't look like you alone, he looks like me too. All the homosexuals on earth. In Congo, cities in North America, Rio Barrios, he looks like a lavender fairy. Paris Salons 1890, the birds and the bees, like an ambidextrous worm, male dogs coupling in the Alabama parking lot. Nothing wrong with the family, mother, father, and Bubba. Nothing wrong with the babe, nothing wrong with Mr. Falwell except a little mean streak that isn't God, just a jerk, talks too big for his britches, inexperienced Bible salesman, interprets words and letters, not Holy Spirit, ambitious politically at the expense of the poor, the thwarted, and happy, ruddy kids. Find out Buddha, enter the great silence and pass through the needle's eye. Then come back happy, laughing, generous, big mouth full of good cheer, not money, honey. The last poem, I'm going to sing one longish poem and one song, it can be done. This poem is called White Shroud, which is the title of a book, White Shroud. The big red book I was reading from is collected poems 1947 to 1980, and then covered 1980 to 85 here. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here that's new, including that little Bush Noriega calypso. Here, a more serious, interesting poem. In 1960, I wrote a long poem called Kaddish, Jewish Hebrew word, elegy for my mother, who died in 1956. In Pilgrim State Hospital, mental hospital in New York, which was one of the largest in the world at the time, I think 25 or 30,000 people. And Kaddish was a narrative story of my difficulties as a kid with my mother, who was having nervous breakdowns, creating a chaotic situation which I wasn't able to handle, except in the poem tried to recreate that. And I had it typed up by an old girlfriend who said, "You aren't done with your mother yet." So in 83, when I was in Boulder, October 5th, I had a dream at about 6 a.m. and woke. It was sort of like a dream vision. And woke and immediately wrote it down. And this is the dream, like the William Carlos Williams dream, more or less exactly as first scribed in a notebook. It's called White Shroud. Let's see, well, I won't explain further, but reflecting on the sort of grief or guilt I felt about my mother dying alone in a madhouse. White Shroud. I am summoned from my bed to the great city of the dead, where I have no house or home, but in dreams may sometime roam, looking for my ancient room, a feeling in my heart of doom, where grandmother aged lies in her couch of later days, and my mother, saner than I, laughs and cries, she's still alive. I found myself again in the great eastern metropolis, wandering under elevated transport's iron struts. Many windowed apartments walled the crowded Bronx roadway under old theater roofs. Masses of poor women shopping in black shawls past candy store newsstands. Children skipped beside grandfathers bent, tottering on their canes. I had descended to this same street from blackened subways Sundays long ago. Tea and locks with my aunt and dentist cousin when I was 10. The living pacifist, David Dellinger, walked at my right side. He'd driven down from Vermont to visit the Catholic worker Tivoli farm. We rode up North Manhattan in his car, relieved the U.S. wars were over in the newspaper. Television's frenzied dance of dots and shadows calmed. Now, older than our shouts and banners, we explored brick avenues we lived in to find new residences, rent loft offices or roomy apartments, retire our eyes and ears and thoughts. Surprised, I passed the open chamber where my Russian Jewish grandmother lay in her bed and sighed, eating a little chicken soup or borscht, potato latkes, crumbs on her blankets, talking Yiddish, complaining solitude, abandoned an old folks' house. I realized I could find a place to sleep in the neighborhood. What relief! The family together again, first time in decades. Now, vigorous, middle-aged, I climbed hillside streets in West Bronx looking for my own hot water-furnished flat to settle in, close to visit my grandmother, read Sunday newspapers in vast, glassy cafeterias, smoke over pencils and paper, poetry desk, happy with books fathered left in the attic, peaceful encyclopedia and a radio in the kitchen. An old black janitor swept the gutter, street dogs sniffed red hydrants, nurses pushed baby carriages past silent house fronts. Anxious, I be settled with money in my own place before nightfall. I wandered the tenement embankments overlooking the pillared subway trestles by the bridge crossing Bronx River. How like Paris or Budapest suburbs, far from Centrum, left's bank junkie doorstep tragedy intellectual fights in restaurant bars, where a spry old lady, Berenice Abbott, carried her Century Universal View camera to record Works Progress Administration newspaper Metropolis double-decker buses in September sun near the Broadway L. Skyscraper roofs upreared, 10,000 office windows shining electric lit above tiny taxis street-lamped in Midtown Avenue's late afternoon darkness the day before Christmas in Manhattan. Herald Square crowds thronged past traffic lights, July noon to lunch, shop under Macy's department store awnings for dry goods. Pause with satchels at Frankfurter counters wearing stylish straw hats of the decade, mankind thriving in their solitudes in shoes. But I'd strayed too long, amused in the picture cavalcade. Where was I living? I remembered looking for a house and eating in apartment kitchens, bookshelf decades ago, my Aunt Rose's illness, an appendix operation I had, teeth braces, one afternoon fitting eyeglasses, first time, combing wet hair back on my skull, young, awkward looking in the high school mirror photograph. The dead look for a home. But here I was, still alive. I walked past a niche between buildings with tin canopy shelter from cold rain, warmed by hot exhaust from subway gratings, beneath which engines throbbed with pleasant, quiet drone. A shopping bag lady lived in a side alley on a mattress, her wooden bed above the pavement, many blankets and sheets, pots, pans, and plates beside her, fan, electric stove by the wall. She looked desolate, white-haired, but strong enough to cook and stare. Passers-by ignored her building-side hovel many years. A few businessmen stopped to speak or give her bread or yogurt. Sometimes she disappeared into state mental hospital back wards, but now returned to her homely alleyway, sharp-eyed, old, cranky hair, half paralyzed, complaining, angry as I passed. I was horrified a little. Who'd take care of such a woman? Familiar, half neglected on our street, except she'd weathered many snows, stubborn, alone in her moth-eaten rabbit fur hat. She had tooth troubles, teeth too old, ground down like horse molars. She opened her mouth to display her gorge. How can she live with that? How eat, I thought, mushroom-like gray-white horseshoe of incisors she chomped with, hard, flat flowers ranged around her gums. Then I recognized she was my mother, Naomi, habiting this old city-edged corner, older than I knew her before her life disappeared. "What are you doing here?" I asked, amazed. She recognized me still, astounded to see her sitting up on her own, chin raised to greet me, mocking. "I'm living alone. You all abandoned me. I'm a great woman. I came here by myself. I wanted to live. Now I'm too old to take care of myself. I don't care. What are you doing here?" I was looking for a house, I thought. She has one in poor Bronx. Needs someone to help her shop and cook. Needs her children now. I'm her younger son. Walked past her alleyway by accident, but here she is, survived, sleeping at night awake on that wooden platform. Has she an extra room? I noticed her cave adjoined an apartment door, unpainted basement storeroom facing her shelter in the building side. I could live here, worst comes to worst. Best place I'll find, near my mother in our mortal life. My years of haunting continental city streets, apartment dreams, old rooms I used to live in, still paid rent for. Keys didn't work now, though. Locks changed. Immigrant families occupied my familiar hallway lodgings, or I'd wander downhill homeless avenues, money lost, or come back to the flat, but couldn't recognize my house. London, Paris, Bronx, by Columbia University Library, downtown 8th Avenue near the Chelsea subway. Those years unsettled were over now. Here I could live forever. Here have a home with Naomi. At long last, at long, long last, my search was ended in this pleasant way. Time to care for her before death. Long way to go yet. Lots of trouble, her cantankerous habits. Shameful blankets near the street, tooth pots, dirty pans, half paralyzed, irritable. She needed my middle-aged strength and worldly money knowledge, housekeeping art. I can cook and write books for a living. She'll not have to beg her medicine food. A new set of teeth for company. Won't yell at the world. I can afford a telephone. After 25 years, we could call up Aunt Edie in California. I'll have a place to stay. Best of all, I told Naomi. Now, don't get mad. You realize your old enemy, Grandma's still alive. She lives a couple blocks downhill. I just saw her, like you. My breast rejoiced. All my troubles over. She was content, too old to care or yell her grudge, only complaining her bad teeth. What long-sought peace. Then, glad of life, I woke in Boulder before dawn, my second-story bedroom windows Bluff Street facing east over town rooftops. I returned from the land of the dead to living poetry and wrote this tale of long-lost joy to have seen my mother again. And when the ink ran out of my pen, and rosy violet illumined city treetop skies above the Flatiron Front Range, I went downstairs to the shady living room, where Peter Orlovsky sat with long hair lit by television glow to watch the sunrise weather news. I kissed him and filled my pen and wept. And I passed a sweet flower o'er. Then I went to my pretty rose tree to tend her by day and by night. But my rose turned away with jealousy, and her thorns were my only delight. And her thorns were my only delight.